your meeting.
Okay. This January 24th, 2023 meeting of the Morgantown Utility Board will come to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes. You have these in your packet. Anybody have any corrections to make or additions?
I move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of December 13th, 2022 as submitted.
I second.
All right. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, public portion, have we, anyone here to speak to the board? No, seeing no one, no letters?
No.
All right, dispense with the public portion. All right, tonight under new business, the following names have been submitted for consideration for officers of the board, and they are Eric Carlson, Secretary, Karen Kuntz, Treasurer, Tom Wett, Vice President, and Barbara Parsons, President. Do I hear a motion?
I would nominate that slate.
Right?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. New business, old business now.
Okay, Upper Pocono Sanitary and Stream Restoration Project. We're right at the 50% completion mark of plans, and we have our first scheduled public meeting this Thursday. It'll be on the 26th at 5 p.m. at the Wiles Hill Community Center. So the public is invited to come, and we hope that because of the location, we'll have plenty of members of the public from the project area will come and take part and listen. Ken Hacker is our senior engineer. He's our project manager. He'll be our lead person in the meeting, and E.L. Robinson Engineering and All-Star Ecology will be there, our consultants, to help with the presentation and answer questions.
Great, this has taken us some time to get here, and we're really excited to get to this point.
Absolutely.
We'll certainly remind the public that they are welcome to attend.
Mike, just a quick question. How long will the presentation take roughly?
I would think about an hour or so, and then, with questions afterwards. Rich, do you think it'd go any longer than that?
No. Yeah, when we talked to E.L. Robinson, I think that's the time frame we were talking about with them. But again, however long questions take, they
Just
take.
helps to plan. Thank you.
Are we filming that?
We are going to film that.
Okay, so we'll put that on the website.
It won't be live, but we'll film it and put it on the YouTube channel and website.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, Westridge.
Move that to executive session.
Okay, we'll move that. Brownfields grant.
Okay, we had our project meeting with Greenbrier Environmental Group and Joe Nowak. He's with the EPA, and he's our contact person there. We met with him on January 4th, and we also had the ability to participate in a Lunch and Learn workshop with the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Center at WVU on January 9th. And both those meetings were very informative, and our consultant was with us, and so we're moving that project right along.
Great. The flood control study.
Okay, Ken Hacker, again, he's our senior engineer that does most of our stormwater work. He has been working with the Division of Highways, providing them with additional information. We haven't had much contact with WVU recently, but he'll be participating in what we call the Morgantown Watershed Collaboration Group in the coming weeks, and so he'll be able to talk to all the participants and see where they are in the process, and now that the holidays are over, and who would be interested in partnering with us and going into the second phase of the study.
Good. I hope this keeps, the interest keeps up. I know this is a challenge, especially since we aren't in a critical time right now facing a lot of flooding, but a flood control study's been done, and it's going to take a lot of effort to pull everybody together, get them to work together. It's going to take a lot of effort just to make some changes to address these issues, but certainly a lot of the Suncrest area should be excited about it, and hopefully we'll keep this going and keep it in front of everybody.
Just another quick note, DEP, they're aware of our work, and so we have a meeting with Kathy Emery on Friday, and we're going to talk to her about the ARPA funds that are available for projects here in West Virginia. And so I think we'll be talking to her a little bit about the project as well.
Good, great. Okay, Coben Creek Reservoir.
Okay, well, very excited. We've started the process of filling the dam, and I'd like to kind of turn it over to Rich for a moment to explain the process that we're in right now.
Yeah, so it's a slow process. We initially it's a smaller volume until you get water in it to fill out. So it's a shorter process. We got it up to about 14 feet before we hit our first hold pattern, which is what we're in now. So we had to hold for 7 days, and that is up tomorrow. And so then we will begin the fill process of 1 foot a day until it gets up to our next hold elevation, which is about 12 feet more. And so, a week from tomorrow we'll be at 26, 27 feet. And then we'll hold for 7 days and repeat the process over and over again until we're at our design elevation. So it's a long process, and we don't start a dam up every day, right? So it's trying to figure out how to control the water, because we have a really good stream that flow into the reservoir that rises. There's more and less depending on rainfall and snowfall, and so we have to adjust valves to match that to try to hold it. And so you can imagine it's a challenge to keep it there, but the guys have been working really hard, and we're excited about it. So tomorrow we'll start the fill process again for the next 12 days. So
Terrific.
I have a couple questions. Has all the security gates been installed out there and cameras so that we can monitor the situation on site?
there's a gate on both sides of the project that's
Okay.
locked up. So there's been no additional security. That'll be the long-term security that you're talking about. Has not been implemented yet.
When will that be implemented?
It'll have to be up by the time we take the gates down,
Okay,
which is probably at the end of, we haven't really decided yet. The end of the contract is once they finish their work at Coben number 1, September-ish.
okay, and the first course has been laid on the road as part of the
Yeah, and
restoration of the road.
and the road is gate to gate within
Okay.
the project
Okay,
only. But
so it's
yes.
gated, the road's, the portion's gated.
Mhm.
I was talking about gating the access to the reservoir that we previously had talked about.
Correct, no.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that hasn't been done.
Okay.
But there's a gate, either end of the project that is locked every day after they leave.
Okay.
Or during the day if they're not there.
So you have to have someone out there practically all day monitoring the flow rate?
Yeah, we're there probably 4 or 5 times a day.
Okay,
If not, we stay out there. But
Okay.
so there's monitoring requirements for us during the filling process, that DEP dam safety has, which includes monitoring a bunch of different things twice a day. But we're trying to control water too, so we're out there more than that.
are we taking any water samples to monitor, sort of baseline the water samples as it fills?
Our water treatment plant takes samples.
Okay,
It's not that frequent,
Okay.
two times a day or anything like that, but they do take samples out there. and
so
try to get
that's
a feel
flowing
for it.
down through the pipe?
Nothing's flowing down the pipe towards the plant.
Well, that's what I was saying.
No.
Should we not be taking samples of the water as it currently stands, just so we have a baseline of what the water quality is there?
Water sampling is occurring of the
Okay.
water that's in the reservoir.
Okay,
It's
that's
not going to the plant though.
Yeah, I
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
understand.
the folks on the plant are coming out to do
Right.
the sampling on
Yeah,
site.
okay, that's what,
Okay.
Question, Rich, could we get a tour maybe scheduled before it fills and offer it not only to our board, but city council, and if any folks from there would like to go out, I know I'd like to go out before it's filled.
Sure. Yeah, just let's, kind of coordinate what is convenient, and we can do it on more than one day too.
And there's a lot less activity out there now, right, since it's filling, so easy to do that. You know, the coordination with the contractor is much easier right now, so.
Good.
I think we look ahead to see what days are gonna be nice to be
Yeah,
outside.
pick a sunny day.
Yeah,
Yeah, this would have been a good day to have the meeting out there.
who would've thought?
All right, good. Glad to hear that we're finally getting where we need to
Yeah, it's
be.
pretty exciting.
It is. Okay, office renovations.
Okay, well, we have completed our internal review of the concept drawings, and we need to schedule another work session with Omni. And in the meantime, we received DOH road construction plans for the upgrade here of Greenbag and the new roundabouts that they're going to
Oh.
install. And we need to get those to Omni to make sure that they're not going to interfere, because they are going to come over and encroach over onto us. And so we want to make sure what their ideas will all fit and come back. So we're still in the process.
Does the Department of Highways already own the right of way, or is that something that's gonna have to happen through this process?
Doesn't look like they own it, so they're coming, they're stepping in off of their existing right.
Right, okay.
I think that parcel's worth about $2 million.
Good try.
Be a bargain.
Yes, a real bargain.
I think our work with the Department of Highways is gonna go great from here on in.
All right, investment policy.
Okay, so we've had the opportunity to review that policy and talk with Truist, and so the board's had it for some time now. If the board is ready to adopt some revisions to give Truist a little bit more leeway, but we're still very restricted on our reserves, what we can do with our dollars. And it's reflected in the policy, but it does give them just a little bit more flexibility.
Okay, do we need to take action on that, or how do you want to do that?
Yes, it would have to be an action item from the board.
Okay, and has everyone had a chance to read this document? Okay, and the recommended changes are in red, as everyone has seen. All the questions that we had got answered by Truist. This is a very conservative policy, which it should be. This is a public institution. And so, do I have a motion to accept this investment policy with the changes that have been suggested?
I move that the board adopt the investment policy as outlined in the attachment here, with a date placed on it of the date of this meeting, and accepting all the corrections marked in red.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Chip, is that good for you too?
That is great for me, yes.
Okay, all
Yes.
right. No further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the new investment policy is passed. All right. Cheat Lake wastewater treatment plant.
Staff is still reviewing the preliminary engineering report, and the board had mentioned that we should hold our meeting to discuss the project out at Cheat Lake, and so we thought we would go ahead and schedule our March 14th board meeting at the Cranberry Hotel, which is across from the Tropics Restaurant, to make it more accessible for our customers out in the Cheat Lake area. And Scott Stearns from Strand and Associates, they will be in attendance as well to take part in the presentation, answer any questions, and then we should be able to move forward with Strand on the next phase, which would be actual design. And this is one of the projects we're going to talk to Kathy Emery with DEP about, the funding ability from the SRF program.
Okay, so this is at 5:30 on March the 14th.
Yes, it'll be our customary time, 5:30.
Okay, the regular meeting, and the people from the Cheat Lake area who have an interest in this are certainly invited to attend so they can hear the presentation and ask any questions. All right, water treatment plant pump house project.
So we're still working with Strand in developing the scope of work for the project. We met with them on the 10th of January and worked through some of the items. I think we'll be finished with the scope and ready for a presentation for the board at the February 14th meeting. Scott Stearns with Strand has indicated he's available to come down and give a presentation and answer questions. So I think we'll be ready to go.
All right. Long-term control plan update.
It's good. We got an update on the same meeting of the 10th, and I think they're making very good progress. Rich, do you have anything to want to add about that?
No, I mean, right now they're in the modeling process of our system, which is time consuming, and so there's not a ton of updates. They're just continuing down that road, and you know, they've asked us for little pieces of information here and there that would help them out, and so there's continuing that modeling process.
Okay. So,
And just another little piece of information, we've been doing work on the Deckers Creek Interceptor. We've been going out, our staff members, and they've been sampling in manholes to check the depth of the grit. And it's not hardly as bad as what we were thinking it might be. And so that we're sharing that information with Strand for the modeling. Just so they can see how clean the pipes are. But part of that interceptor is in Deckers Creek, and I don't think there's any question it's probably taking on some of that water, you know, out there. So, but we're anxiously awaiting it. The modeling is time consuming. It is going to be a bit before they're finished.
okay.
Is that interceptor at the subterranean bridge, or where is that located?
You're going into the
Deckers.
I don't know the answer to that. If it's
Is it further down towards the river?
you're talking about the bed going over to the park.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah, I
further
mean,
down.
it goes,
Yeah.
but does it go under the bridge or is it over on the
I think it's
creek
out of
bank?
the creek by that time.
On the park side or the road side?
I think it's on the road side.
Okay.
A couple of roads.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's a quick update on all of our projects.
All right, we have liaison from the city, Emily Mozzarelli, who is the assistant city manager, and she is going to give us an update.
I have visuals if it will help later, but I think you guys are probably pretty familiar. I just wanted to go over a few projects. A couple I'm going to touch on in the beginning very quickly. All of the paperwork for the Pocono Run project has been executed. So we sent your administration information about how to basically submit invoices to get reimbursed. All of those are reimbursable projects. And we're still working out. There's a split between the city and the county, 50-50, but we can only pay for things within the city limits for that project. So part of that project is outside of city limits, so it's just more tracking that we'll be doing with your folks. But all of the stuff for that project is executed. I'm going to briefly mention the sewer project in White Park. Everything has been signed off on by that. My understanding is that it has been mobilized. We did work with the ATF's office that had the ammunitions box. They are working to relocate that closer to their office, which is in Bridgeport. So that won't be there anymore, and because they were moving that to Bridgeport, they are moving that at their own expense. So that'll be gone for all users of White Park and from further away from the utility system. So my understanding is that they have poured that new concrete base in Bridgeport and are just waiting for that to cure. And then they'll go ahead once that's ready to mobilize the moving of that box. We'll circle back to White Park in a minute, but I want to hop over to Flegel. That's great that you guys are filling. We sat down, city administration sat down with MUB administration to go over some of the feedback from the public comment section. Well, it wasn't a fully public meeting, but the local residents We did have a meeting with, we sent mailers out. We had a really great attendance. I know some of you were there. There was definitely concerns for the project. I think some that may be inevitable, whether or not there's any recreation there. But there was also some general support for pieces of the project. So one of the things actually, as we looked further into that and get some clarification from MUB's consultant, is actually in the backwaters where we were looking at having the backwater crossing. The water level is actually below where we were looking to cross. So some of the timeliness issues that we were trying to work on with getting crossings there, it was actually will be feasible to do that once the reservoir is filled. So we wanted to make sure that that was number one, that the reservoir could get filled and there was no delay in that, because we know that impacts COBA number one as well. So there will be ways to be able to put those crossings, smaller crossings, because instead of one big long one where we were thinking it would be almost like a boardwalk, there'll be able to be two small ones over the tributary and then a trail in between. And again, this is further up in the backwaters, so it'll be dry primarily. And there's one other area that we anticipate will be parallel to the flow of water. So you can do a floating one in those, similar to like an easy dock if you guys have been to any of the kayak launches. So you can't put those where it runs perpendicular to the water because you get kind of a bowing on it, but when it is running parallel, that you can do those. So we still are looking to kind of finalize that. I agree with board member and councilman Harshberger for getting a tour out there. I know we've had the ability to go out there a few times and would love to kind of see that in kind of a semi-finished product. I know there was still some discussion over where the old roadway came up about what that could be left as in the parking down below the dam, that entry road. So those are definitely some areas that'll be key in kind of finalizing that and then continuing to work with MUB on the idea of, what recreation makes sense there. How do we ensure any kind of mitigation for any impacts to the local property owners? I think the biggest thing that we still are going to need to resolve is the roadway. If you guys have not been on that, I'm sure where you guys gate to gate, I'm sure that roadway is going to be super nice when you're done. But the rest of it isn't. And that is a state road outside city limits. So we'd like to maybe be able to work with them. We have been in contact with some other state agencies, one being DNR, about that site. But it would be great if we can work with DOH on, if we do put recreational amenities out there, how we can improve some of the traffic safety. That was one of the biggest concerns, I think, that was mentioned by the residents, really kind of probably outside of whether or not there's recreation there. But if we are having people go there, we want to make sure that they can get to and from safely. So that's kind of where we're at with legal. So we are ensuring that kind of, I would say any kind of timeline for that. Construction in and around the reservoir, maybe something below, but nothing kind of above the reservoir. I would guess that would be a more 2024 scheduled time frame, so we can ensure that everything's taken care of. And I think one of the things that'll really benefit is ensuring that there's a stabilization of any of the borrow areas, and we can kind of watch to see if there's trouble with the reservoir itself just being there and really having that separate from recreation, because I think that was one of the things that was of concern. So how can maybe the recreation help some of the other effects that may be going on just from the reservoir itself existing? Any questions on any of those projects before I hop to White Park? Okay. So White Park is really a compilation of a whole bunch of separate projects for us. So, you guys had the gravity line and the sewer line. So how we've really split this apart is the bridge. So bridge design, we have been working, we got one scope and cost estimate for the design, that we really wanted to work with MUB a little bit and seeing if we can bring that number down. So we've been working with some of the design firms. They have come back to us. So we are going to be re-engaging with MUB to kind of walk through where that scope and cost estimate is for the design. We're still struggling because the elevation of where it says the floodplain gets to overtops the dam. So that just makes, you can't put a bridge right by the water because they'll say it's gonna overtop, and because it's the detailed flood study area. So, and then we're re-looking at the exact location. So we had been talking about something a little bit further up in the backwater, and we're trying to see if, to minimize the impact to the park, to the trees, we all love our trees, to, maybe can we do it maybe in the same swath that the water line is in. It's a pretty big swath, and we talked about how we can make sure that we're, avoiding that water line, but really minimizing any additional crossings. So if you'll recall, the original agreement talked about 2 bridges, one up above, one below. We've eliminated the one below, kind of exchange for more of a loop trail on the one side. And again, we're looking at maybe moving that a little closer, and that may take off a little bit more of the trail work, but hopefully overall give a better product. So I can definitely send more visuals once we get some of this worked out. And again, we're primarily working with staff on, MUB staff on, as we work through this scope, and we met with Rich and Mike on some of these discussions, but we're trying to, kind of make this as, the best use of public funds, both MUB and city. So, so that's the bridge. The trail and the bridge really go hand in hand. So I've learned a lot about trail construction. You want people to walk on it before it gets mushy. And so timing is very important. So, with where the trail is going to be now and some of the access limitations because of the Greenback roadside and the bridge, we really don't want to do that trail work until the bridge is there or is in the process. With some of those flood issues that we talked about, we are looking at a 2024 timeframe. That's the schedule that we're on for those. Similarly, so that's trees and that's bridge and trails. We don't really want to put new trees in there until construction's done. So while we have been working with MUB on kind of draft tree replacement for the initial project, new trees, young trees are very sensitive in their roots. So if you drive an excavator over them, you're going to damage the roots and likely kill all of the trees that you just put in. So we are looking at kind of doing that project in conjunction with, as the trail work and the bridge work is finishing up, being able to then go move forward with the tree replacement. And again, that is a 2-to-1 for the 150 or 60 trees that were removed. So that's a lot. Those probably all won't go back in White Park, but looking to put them other places. So we may get that one out a little bit earlier and put some in other places prior to construction in 2024 being done. But tree replacement within White Park will wait for those other, major construction that we know is occurring to be done. We applied for a grant as part of our voluntary remediation program. Part of what is included in there is actually some of the trail construction. It was kind of a pilot for the voluntary remediation program. If awarded that will actually reduce the trail construction cost and the bridge cost to hopefully to MUB. So we included some of that work in there. And the reason why we did that with the everything on the south side is to kind of use it as a pilot to see if, one, it'll get accepted, and for potential ways to mitigate some of the cleanup activities that are going to occur on the other side. So again, kind of the idea of using trail construction for remediation of soil contamination. We did get our assessment plan approved by DEP as part of our voluntary remediation program. Really, that just says our plan of how we think we're going to use trails for remediation is approved. We don't know if we'll get grant funding yet for that, but we do have that process. So we're chugging along with the voluntary remediation program, and they kind of all play hand in hand. But right now, the biggest thing is we're trying to get funding to help offset any costs to MUB. I know there was some confusion or some different levels of understanding of what a bridge and trail meant, or that was a comment made before, and so we want to be very sensitive and respectful to that. And so that's why that went in there. So I think around this time next year we should find out if we get it. So it's kind of a long process to find that. But again, that's kind of the timeline we're probably on with the bridge project. So right now the trail project is sitting there ready to go, but it doesn't make sense to build a trail that nobody can access, or only can access by trespassing on somebody else's property. So we don't want to do that. So that is why the bridge project is kind of driving those other things. But that allows us to potentially seek the grant funding to help offset those costs and be that pilot for other parts of White Park. I know I just gave a whole lot of information.
Thank you for that information. I think that makes a lot of sense and answers some of the questions that we talked about previously as far as timing. And yeah, if you don't want a very nice trail that's going to sit vacant for 12 months and then sink into it once people start walking on it. So I think that the timeline makes a lot of sense, making sure the bridge gets in and then not killing trees as a result too. I know when we did roadwork projects in my previous job, all the landscaping and trees went in in the spring following the work being completed, so it leaves things looking a little bare when the big expensive road project's done, but that makes sure it looks nice for decades to come instead of right at the grand opening.
And typically here in West Virginia, we actually prefer to plant trees in the fall. Even though our springs are wet, our summers are very hot and usually very dry,
Yeah.
and they makes you want to water trees. Well, you don't really want to walk into a forest to have to water new trees. So that's why we typically actually plant trees, a lot of our trees more like October, November timeframe, when it's moderately wet and not quite as hot. So
You said you have visuals?
I've got these really big plans that I was going to have on poster boards, but I didn't get them until I was in another meeting and realized it was 4:20 and I needed to leave. So I can unroll them. It's not really any, it's just the aerials of the parks. So, and one of them has the waterway on it and kind of where we originally thought the crossing was going to be at Flegel, and then after talking to GDNF, so where it's actually further back in the channel, which allowed us to delay that until the reservoir was filled up. And those two projects are really important timing wise. Obviously, you guys have been talking about, they couldn't move back to Coben number 1 until, the process on Flegel was done and they were starting to fill that. And then they couldn't work on the weir until the Coben Flegel was full. And so all of those changes to the weir changed the water level in White Park. So they really kind of go back and forth. They're so connected. And so they just, timing keeps playing back and forth off of each other. And so there's a lot happening. I feel like half of my to-do list is White Park or Flegel. But there's a lot of different moving parts, but they all are moving forward, and I think there's a good plan, and I think it'll really benefit everybody.
Good. Thank you for such a thorough update. Really appreciate that. We get bits and pieces as they come along, and putting it all together is very nice to hear the overview. And it is a cooperative effort because obviously about as much of the time that you're talking about you're spending on it, we've been spending on it too. So good to know it's coming together really nicely. And I like having the perspective on the deadlines, or at least the anticipated dates for some of these actions. That's very helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely been a moving target, I think. Especially when we start talking about like the trees and the trails and the restoration of White Park. The water line has been done for a while. But all of these other things being in play, and then as we actually started into the bridge design, and we actually started looking at what FEMA designates as the flood levels. That really threw a monkey wrench into things, because it either says you're putting things in the floodplain and everything overtops, which we've been here when we've had some pretty significant storms and know that that's not accurate. But it's also, so that alone, they say, well, you're putting something in the floodplain. Of course, you're going to increase the flood elevations and make more people flood. But it's tough to look at that when you know that that information's not right. But convincing FEMA that that information is not right either is a chore in of itself.
Yes.
So it's just kind of slowed that down a little.
Good. Very, very good to hear your report. Do you want her to, Emily, leave these materials that she brought so you can review them?
If she can.
Yep,
Would
you
you
can
like to
have
leave
them.
those for us? We'd be glad to take
Absolutely.
a look at that. That'd be nice, helpful.
Barb, just a question, with regards to the sanitary sewer line replacement and replacement of that, any potential ways to take advantage of that with the trail, or is that with the trail to be far enough away that it's not a part of the construction that will be the trail eventually?
Yeah, I think the part that is the recent part of the sewer line that is being replaced, that's kind of in line with an existing one. Not too much of that really overlaps with the existing trail. And part of that project is actually, it kept the access road in to, I think, address the weir or maybe address the sewer project itself. But some of that will come out. One of the things that we're actually trying to see if there's a way, and this would be more through if we were to get grant funding, is to, if there is any desire or way to get a second access point off of Greenbag, so you didn't necessarily have to access just off of Mississippi, that if you wanted to access off of Greenbag, that there could potentially be an access point over there, and kind of almost create a parking lot, I think, in like the laydown area. So probably not specifically just for that project as it relates to the trail, because it doesn't really overlap a whole lot. It kind of like skims the very end of it and loops back on itself, just because there was, we could have gone down that same path where that trail is, but then you get to the very bottom and we had difficulty crossing back over Coben and getting back up on the north side, so it gets pretty steep.
Well, a second access point off of Greenbag would be
Really nice.
very nice for the public.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
It's like maybe future plans.
Is that something you've approached Bill Austin and the MPO with?
We have not really dug into it a whole lot yet, just because we're trying to get these first couple pieces done. But it would be something that we would love to get to, but don't think that part of this project is making sure it gets done. We're gonna focus on the first bridge, the kind of loop trail on the south side, and getting the trees replaced. So.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your update.
Thanks so much.
Okay, that brings us to the general manager's report.
Okay, well, just to expand on White Park just a moment, we have started construction. The first manhole base was installed today and 3 sticks of pipe, so we're making good progress. Of course, we had a great weather day. Don't get that very often in January, so we're appreciative of Mother Nature. We have identified about 14 trees that we're going to have to replace, so we'll get that done through probably in the fall. So working with the tree board, Ken had a meeting today, and so all that's moving along.
Good.
What is the caliber of the minimum caliber that has to be replaced?
Is it 3
Anything greater
inches?
than
3 inches. Okay.
Okay, we talked about the PSC rule changes. The orders came out just this afternoon, and we haven't had the ability to review those. So we will update the board once we've had an opportunity to review the orders and see what the commission has adopted as far as main extension rules for water and wastewater
Okay. All right.
And that's the end of my report.
Have any other questions for Mike? Anybody? Okay. The board, any comments, questions you may have?
I would just like to add to this body that if there are questions that we have from the MUB standpoint about city projects, and I've kind of posed the same question to the city, please let me know, and I would like to be that kind of bridge, and trying to think of, what would maybe a simple report look like that I could bring back from council to this meeting if there are questions, and vice versa. So just be thinking along those lines in terms of how I can be most helpful.
Okay, we will. We'll find a way.
Good.
Count on it.
And Mike, I know I mentioned to you earlier, just wanted to thank your team again. We had an issue at our building that your team was able to come help us out with in very short order. Joey and his team did superb work and did it fast, and very appreciative.
You're welcome.
All right, not hearing anything else from the board members, we need to go into an executive session. Would someone make a move?
I move to convene an executive session of the Board of Directors under the provisions of West Virginia Code Section 6-9A-4B9 to discuss confidential matters thereunder, as well as West Virginia Code 6-9A-4B12 to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege, and to further move that the January 24th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Directors be adjourned at the conclusion of the executive session.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we will break now for 10 minutes, and we'll come back to executive session.